Hi everybody! It is that time of the month where it is time for my monthly reading wrap-up. So in today's video, we are going to talk about all the books I read in the month of September. I read 6 books in the month, so better than what I've been reading, but not necessarily a ton of books. I'm not necessarily trying to speed read through anything. I just am kind of taking my time and enjoying reading more toward the end of the year, since I had a couple of months where I was reading like constantly and it was a lot. I mean, it was a fun time, but I definitely can't read 10 plus books every month. So we're going to talk about all of the books I read and talk about some synopsises and some ratings, so you should definitely subscribe if you're into book content. But with everything being said, let's just jump into the video and start talking. The first read I had this month was Unravel Me. This is the second book in the Shatter Me series. So this is basically the second book continuing the plot of the re-embellishment and getting to know the characters and kind of getting to know more about Aaron and just the whole dystopian world as well as the characters. I personally really enjoyed this book. There wasn't so much constant action, but I personally don't mind that it was a little bit slower because it wasn't boring by any means. I still got information. There were still action scenes. It just kind of gave you a better idea of what was going on, and you kind of got more the background behind everything compared to just the constant right in action like the first book and you have no clue what's going on. I rated this book 4 stars. I did like the first one a little bit better just because, like I said, for getting into a series, it was just so fast-paced and it was shorter too, so it just made me want to keep reading. But I love this series. I love the characters. I love the short chapters. It is YA dystopian, I don't know, fantasy kind of, but there is romance in this, and the romance continues throughout the whole series. So I thought this was an enjoyable book, and I am definitely continuing the series. Then the next book I read, which I don't have the physical copy of, is Fracture Me. That is the second novella, or the 2.5 novella. And that novella is about 70 or so pages, and it's basically Adam's point of view of his thoughts on the second book and what is going on, because throughout the full books you get mostly Juliet's point of view, so you don't get to see what everyone else is thinking as much. I gave the Fracture Me novella a 3-star just because it was information. It was 70 pages. You can only do so much in that time frame. So then I moved on to a thriller murder mystery. This is Nothing More to Tell by Karen M. McManus. This book is YA. It has a little bit of a romance subplot, and I'm not really going to give you any information on this book. I took like a good amount of time to read this. This was a solid probably a third of my month because I really struggled honestly reading this book. I did not enjoy it that much, and I hate saying that because if you've watched my channel, you know I love Karen McManus. I just felt like this book was not super well thought out. It wasn't anything crazy. There was nothing that absolutely baffled me personally. And I just was kind of underwhelmed by a lot of the things in this book. And I also didn't really care about the characters or the relationship in this book. But I did read it, and if this book turns into a series, I'll probably continue it. I don't know if it was just the timing or I just didn't enjoy this one. But I gave this book 3 stars, I believe. Yeah, 3 stars. So, wasn't my favorite book of the month, but it wasn't terrible. I mean, I'm glad I read it, but I don't really care to pick this back up ever again. The next book I read was Layla. I do have a reading vlog for this book, Nothing More to Tell, and The End of Unravel Me. I did film what I was reading over the past couple of weeks in a recent video if you want to check that out. So you got to see all my opinions on this book. This is about a girl and a guy who meet each other at this wedding, and then they want to go back to this house where the wedding took place just to kind of visit and get some time away from this stressful incident that happened to them. Have peace, and things start happening, and there is a couple of different plots that I'm not going to share because I think you should go into this blind. I didn't read the back of this book. I didn't read any opinions on this book. I just wanted to go into it with no thoughts, and honestly I think that's the best way to do it. That is the very brief synopsis I'm giving because I feel like a lot of things you can start thinking about, or I just keep it simple. Just read it and don't look too far into it. And yeah, I gave this book 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it, but it wasn't my favorite Colleen book. It also kind of started writing itself out toward the end, in my opinion. I started predicting the ending probably a little over halfway through, so that's just me, but there was a couple plot twists that were like fun, and it was spooky, and it was a good fall book, so if you want to check it out, I recommend. The next book I read was Ignite Me. This is the third book in the Shatter Me series. I basically just wanted to continue this out because I am so obsessed with this. Even though these books are anywhere from like 300 to 500 plus pages, they're so easy to read, and I've talked about that so many times. But it's so true. If you're in a slump, or if you're just struggling with things to read, or you want to get into like kind of dystopian, this is such a perfect book. And it is, again, YA, so most ages I think could be suitable to read this, and I think it's so entertaining, and I love this series with my whole heart. So this book also got 4 stars, so I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed especially a part of this because kind of the thoughts start changing with Juliet and what she's thinking about for a few things, and I kind of love to see something start sparking and start picking up that has kind of been put off, or kind of just a slow burn, if that makes sense, throughout the past 2 books. The final book I read toward the end of the month / a little bit of the beginning of October was The Silent Patient. This book has been raved about by so many people, so I had to check it out, and I really enjoyed this book. I will say it's definitely slower throughout the first half to 70%. It's not necessarily like boring, in my opinion. It's just information collecting, and nothing too crazy is going on, in my opinion. You're just going throughout this psychotherapist trying to get information on this woman who shot her husband 5 times in the face and then does not speak anymore. And he wants to crack her, he wants to get her to speak, he's trying to figure out her situation and what occurred, because this lady just had very little motive that he can figure out, or just very little reasoning to why this would have happened. You just see him going throughout trying to figure this out, and talking with people and interviewing and trying to talk to this woman and create a connection with her. And the plot twists in this book were really good. I will admit, it was a solid read. Like, even though it was a little bit like slower to probably a lot of people, I really enjoyed the ending of this book, and I felt like there was unexpected turns that you really couldn't predict, and then it was a fun time. It was an enjoyable read, and you kind of close this book like just staring at a wall, like you're just kind of shocked. So I definitely recommend this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I totally see why a lot of people rave about this book, and I really enjoyed the writing style in this. I felt like it was done very well, and I liked everything about the formatting and the words and everything, and the chapters were super short, and I felt a need to mention that because I would say the chapters were anywhere from 2 to 10 pages. They were really not long, so it was definitely a book that you could fly through really quickly because of the fact that it just constantly kept you in, and there was little hooks a lot of the time at ends of chapters that make you want to keep reading it. So solid read. Well, everyone, those are all of my reads this month. I also did read Fracture Me online. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, just because I don't want to purchase the novellas. I don't really care. So I read that online since it was just a short amount of pages. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you enjoyed also kind of getting more snippets of some of these books in my other videos. So let me know if you enjoyed that, because I will continue to do that then in future months. So I will see you guys all next time. I love you very much.